Good to see everybody. Welcome and God bless you. I'm looking forward to today, seeing how the Lord will continue to teach me what is going on in the book of Isaiah, because man, there's a lot going on there, right? So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you all. Thank you for praying, Rick. I appreciate it. And what we're going to do is look at the burden of Tyre today. And Tyre and Sidon, remember that? Jesus had actually mentioned Tyre a few times. And you can go and find that for yourself. He actually said that it would be better for some places than Tyre and Sidon. And one of those places was Sodom. And the reason being is Christ never showed up to Sodom, but Christ had been there right around Tyre. So I think that place was one that had received a lot of blessings, but didn't really return the favor by giving their heart over to the Lord. So the burden of Tyre. Howl. That means cry out. That means there's trouble there. Howl, you ships of Tarshish. Now, Tarshish, wait a minute, let's see. We're going to be able to see right here that in this map, I'm not sure how completely accurate it is, but I did do a lot of research trying to find out where Tyre and this other place that we were looking at, Tarshish, is. And so Tyre is not hard to find because it's actually just right over there next to the Lebanon area. And you'll see, where is it now? Here it is. Is that it? No, that's Tartus. I'm looking for Tarsus, or Tyre, sorry. And there's Sidon. We're going to see Sidon in just a minute. But there it is, Tyre, okay? And so Tyre's over here next to the Mediterranean Sea. You can see that, and here's the land of Israel where Christ was. And so if you were to expand out a little bit and come all the way over here, so let's just see, here's the Mediterranean Sea, and if you left Tyre and you were coming up over past Rome and some of the islands there, and you came all the way to this location over here, you'd be able to see that right here, and you can see on the left-hand side, there is Tarshish, okay? That's what they're calling Tarshish. Now, so this would be a coastal area, and along with Tyre, which would be a coastal area as well. Now, you can imagine that from any of these lands around here, anybody coming to the Mediterranean Sea to deliver would either come through mainly come through this channel right here, which would be, in this case, the Strait of Gibraltar, okay? That's what we call it today. So that's where they would be. And if you were interested in learning more about that, you can just go ahead and ask me for this link and I'll send it to you, but you can probably find it yourself. And so that's what's happening is Tyre over on the eastern side of my screen, and you would go all the way over to this other location, Tarshish, which is on the western side. Okay, so going back to what the Bible is teaching there, the burden of Tyre. Howl ye ships of Tarshish. So now the ships would come from the west all the way over to the east, and that's what's happening is for it is laid waste. Okay, so Tyre is laid waste, and the ships from Tarshish are no longer going to be able to deliver to Tyre because Tyre is a land that is laid waste, so that there is no house, no entering in from the land of Shittim. It is revealed to them. And so you can see without houses, there's nothing that actually separates the view. And so you'd be able to see all the way from Chittim all the way to where Tyre is. Now, I wasn't able to find this location here, but I'm sure that somebody would be able to do that later. Be still, you inhabitants of the isle. Now remember, we were talking about the idea of isle. It doesn't necessarily mean an island, but a dry land or a coastal area. And so I think that it's pretty clear from the map that we had seen before that you probably have Tyre as a coastal land and Tarshish also as coastal lands. Neither of them were islands. And so you inhabitants of the coastal lands, be still, you thou whom the merchants of Sidon, which it used to be Zidon, but Christ, when he mentioned it, it was Sidon, Tyre and Sidon. And so the merchants of Zidon or Sidon that pass over the sea, they have replenished. Okay, be still, because Sidon's going to help you out, right? And it's let me see if I read that correctly. Be still, you inhabitants of the isle, thou whom the merchants of Sidon that pass over the sea have replenished. So be still. And by great waters, the seed of Sihor, the harvest of the river, is her revenue. Now, what are we talking about here? I understand that Sihor was actually part of Egypt, okay? So the Egyptian land was able to help them with their seed or their grain. So by the waters, so as a result of using the waters to ship things from one location to another, the seed or grain of Egypt, which was the harvest of the river, is her revenue. Okay, so people were able to gather from the various ships and merchants that were passing over the sea, and you don't want to trust anymore in Tyre because it's a land that's laid waste. Okay, so the ships of Tarshish don't any longer come over to this area, and it's the seeds that they grew, or the grain that they grew. I wish I knew better. I didn't find out that information. It's just coming to my head now, but I did learn it was the grains of Egypt. So you find that they, or she, is a mart of the nations. So I was explaining this to my wife, that it's kind of like Walmart. You know, I mean, what do you need? What kind of grain do you need? Go over to Walmart, or go over to Sihor, go over to Sidon. You used to go to Tyre, but you can't go to Tyre anymore because it's a land that's laid waste. Be thou ashamed, O Zidon, for the sea has spoken. Even the strength of the sea, saying, I travail not, nor bring forth children, neither do I nourish up young men, nor bring up virgins. Now, I know that you were saying this the other day, Steve. You were saying, you know, I wish I understood more about what was happening there in the history of Isaiah, because this verse doesn't make a lot of sense to me. The sea is crying out, we're not bringing forth children, we're not bringing forth virgins. Like, what does that mean? I don't understand. So if you all at the end want to give me some of your understanding about what that verse says, please feel free to share, because that will be helpful to me. Anyways, the sea was crying out, saying, I travail not, nor bring forth children, neither do I nourish up young men, nor bring up virgins. As at the report concerning Egypt, which remember we had talked about that Sihor was where they got the grain, right? The seed from Sihor. It's a report concerning Egypt. So shall they be sorely pained at the report of Tyre. Okay, maybe this is hearkening back to when Egypt had its plagues, because there was a report concerning Egypt, and it's going to be the same kind of report that is given regarding Tyre. And remember, in verse 1, it is the burden of Tyre that we're talking about. Pass ye over, and so in other words, go over for a distance. Pass ye over to Tarshish. How ye inhabitants of the isle, or the coastal land, is this your joyous city, whose antiquity is of ancient days? Her own feet shall carry her afar off to sojourn. So to sojourn is to actually to live, right? To abide, to assemble, to dwell, to gather together, or to inhabit. So she's going to be taken from a long distance to be able to live. And who is this? Well, it's the inhabitants of Tyre, right? So pass over to Tarshish. Leave that area, it sounds like what they're saying. So get out of the cities, if you will. Maybe that's part of the message. Because Tyre was a place probably like our San Francisco, or like the New Testament Corinthians, or Corinth. A place where ships would come in. And it was very populated. It was very popular. A lot of merchandise would be given from, you know, those people to others, and a lot of traffic coming in and out. Well, there was a lot of trouble as a result. You can even see that the Corinthian church was very confused as a result. And so, well, we know that, you know, for example, San Francisco is very confused as a result. There's the coastal land of Los Angeles and that area down there. Well, it's pretty confused as well. All the big cities, San Diego, etc. Those big cities that have a lot of merchants and a lot of traffic and a lot of ware coming in and out of those areas, they end up being very sinful areas, very troubled, you know. So that's what I think we're seeing with Tyre, and also with Tarshish. But it's saying, like, you need to leave Tyre and go over to Tarshish, I think is what's being said, kind of like get out of the cities, if you will. And so what it's saying is, pass over to Tarshish, how ye inhabitants of that coastal land, is this your joyous city? You've been around for a long time, but you're going to go and live in a distant land. Who hath taken this counsel against Tyre, the crowning city, whose merchants are princes, whose traffickers are the honorable of the earth? Now, so if you were to ask me, it sounds a little bit like what's happening is that Tyre is kind of like our end time or apocalyptic Babylon, okay? Babylon in Revelation 18 ends up having quite a bit of money and resource and merchants, and the kings of the earth are coming to them, and they're honoring them with their wares, and they're buying from them, and they're selling to them, and the whole world seems to be happy because of Babylon and all the merchandise of gold and fine linen and incense and cinnamons and all those various things that are described in Revelation chapter 18. But just like Revelation 18 and Babylon is going to collapse, the economy is going to fall flat, and you're not going to be able to have Babylon around to be able to take care of the kings of the earth and those mighty men and the princes. Well, it's the same way with Tyre. So if you were to ask me how this relates to us and how it related to them, it's kind of like an Old Testament Babylon that falls, okay? Like Tyre is fallen, right? So you kind of have that scenario going on as far as my mind is going with this section. And so if you wanted to read, for example, in Revelation chapter 18, say verse 7, how much she had glorified herself. Now this is the New Testament Babylon. She lived deliciously, so much torment and sorrow give her, for she said in her heart, I sit as a queen, and I am no widow. And kind of like the idea of this section back here where I'm not going to bring forth and nourish young men and bring forth virgins. You're going to be a widow. It's kind of like the same thing right here. I will be no widow. I will see no sorrow, she says. This is Babylon in the New Testament. Therefore, her plagues will come in one day, death and mourning and famine. And she will be utterly burned with fire. For strong is the Lord who judges her. And who is it that's upset? The kings of the earth who have committed fornication. You'll be able to see that in the Old Testament as well. The kings of the earth who have committed fornication and lived deliciously with her shall bewail her and lament for her when she shall see the smoke of her, or when they shall see the smoke of her burning, standing afar off, for that fear of that torment, saying, Alas, alas, that great city, or Tyre, right? This is actually Babylon, but they're going to say the same thing. That great city, Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour thy judgment is come. And the merchants of the earth, the merchants like the rich men and the mighty men, the captains and the kings and the princes, they will weep and mourn over her, for no man buys their merchandise anymore. Why? Because she is flat, like it says over there in the Old Testament, specifically referring to Tarshish. She is this ancient city that is now passed over, as it says here. There's a pained report for Tyre, and all the kings and the princes, the merchants, and those who trafficked with her, they are crying out, they're howling against her. And now, so back here again, talking about Tyre instead of Babylon in the New Testament, the Lord of hosts has purposed it. So great is the Lord who judges her, as it says there in the New Testament in Revelation 18, for it says there, where did it say that? Right here. Strong is the Lord who judges her. Well, kind of like the same thing in Tyre, going back to the book of Isaiah. The Lord of hosts has purposed it, to stain the pride of all glory and bring into contempt all the honorable of the earth. The honorable, of course, would be those that are princes, and those that are merchants, and those that are trafficking along with Tyre. Pass through the land as a river, O daughter of Tarshish. There is no more strength. So Tyre is wiped out. He stretched out his hand over the sea. He shook the kingdoms. The Lord has given a commandment against the merchant city to destroy the strongholds thereof. So now this is a judgment by God. And so just like it was in the Old Testament, where Tyre was a place that was able to provide merchandise for lots of people, like kind of a Walmart of the day, if you will. And so Walmart for us in America is kind of like the place where you get anything you need. You just go to Walmart. What do you need? Tools, you need food, you need clothing. What do you need? You go to Walmart. Kind of like the same thing with Tyre. Well, it's the same thing with the Babylon in the New Testament. You have in Revelation 18, you can get anything you want, anywhere you want from Babylon. It's all over the world. Kind of like the same thing with Tyre. It would produce merchandise for everybody. And so there was this network that was described in the Old Testament with Tyre, and this network fell. Why? Because Tyre fell. And as a result of Tyre falling, the whole system fell apart. And so they're saying to the daughter of Tarshish, you need to go and weep, go find another place to live because it's not working over there in Tyre. And that's the same thing that's going to be happening with us in this fall of Babylon, which will be an economic collapse. And so learning from what happened in Tyre in the book of Isaiah will help us understand better how to prepare for what's going on in the fall of Babylon. The merchandise is going to fail. You're not going to be able to go to Walmart anymore and get rice and beans and different things like honey and whatever else you get for your house. You're not going to be able to have those things. So what are we supposed to do? We're supposed to leave Tyre, leave the cities, go out into another area and prepare for ourselves in a way that will be able to sustain us apart from the systems of the world. Now, my family has been praying to do this for so many years, and we're trying to take it seriously. We're trying to do what we can to prepare, but you can only go so fast as the Lord opens the way. So we're praying and we're searching and we're looking and we're trying to figure out what we can do and how we can do it. So, pray for us, and I'll be praying for you that we can all prepare for what is coming, because pretty soon Walmart's not going to be around, right? Costco's not going to be able to provide for you those things that you go and get once a week or twice a week. You're not going to be able to drive into town pretty soon and fill up with fuel and be able to just have everything as it has been for years. We can see how COVID came in and shut down everything in 3 weeks. I remember back when it happened in the early part of 2000, I remember thinking, wow, this all of a sudden happened. Like, we're here 2 or 3 weeks into this and look around. I mean, this is crazy. Is this how it's going to go? Like the last movements will be rapid ones? Well, yeah, we saw it happen, and we've kind of like tapered off a little bit for how fast it was going down. So it almost like cleared the wave, if you will, and went more into a flat line. But we're still down here. We're not back up to where we were, right? So we're still down at this area, but it's flatlined. It didn't just keep going down and down and down, or else we would have had the Sunday law by now, I'm sure. But what about the second wave? What about the third wave? What about these things that are coming? What about the world reset? What is that going to look like? Are you going to have Walmart pretty soon? Is Tyre going to be around any longer? Is Babylon going to be around anymore? Is the merchants of the earth going to be wailing? Are the kings of the earth going to be upset because the whole economic collapse has occurred? I think it's going to happen, yes. And so this is a call to come out of the cities. I think what God is saying is we need to be serious. We need to get out and prepare. And so God is doing what he can in the book of Isaiah, I think, to help us understand that it's not going to always be like it's always been. And so Tyre is helping us to understand that a little bit more. So the Lord has commanded this to happen against the merchant city. The merchant city is not going to be around anymore. He's going to destroy the strongholds of the merchant city. Babylon is going to fall, and it's going to be ugly. You can read it in Revelation chapter 18. And he said, "Thou shalt no more rejoice." As it says in Revelation 18, it says in verse 23, "The light of a candle shall shine no more at all in thee, and the voice of the bridegroom and the bride shall no more be heard at all in thee." There's going to be no more rejoicing. Why? Because your merchants were the great of men of the earth, and by your sorceries were all nations deceived. That is, by the way, pharmakia. I'm going to look at that one more time. Pharmakia. What do we get from that? Pharmacy. And as a result of the pharmacy or sorceries were all nations deceived. That doesn't have anything to do with an illness named COVID, does it? No, probably yes, it does. Anyways, okay, so thou shalt no more rejoice, O thou oppressed virgin, daughter of Sidon. Arise, pass over to Chittim. There also shalt thou have no rest. So you need to get out of that area. Pass over to another land. Go somewhere else. Don't be next to Tyre. Don't be next to Babylon. Don't be next to Los Angeles. Don't be next to like the big cities in Texas or Illinois or all those other places. We need to realize that, and even in New York, right? So we need to realize that God is calling us to understand that it's not always going to be as it has been. Behold, the land of the Chaldeans. Now, where are the Chaldeans from? Well, they're from Babylon. The land of the Chaldeans, this people was not, till the Assyrian founded it for them that dwell in the wilderness. So where did the Chaldeans come from? Where did the Babylonians came from? They came from the Assyrian group, right? The Assyrians ruled, and then, well, first it was Egyptians, and then it was the Assyrians, and then it was the Babylonians, and then it was the Medo-Persians, and then it was the Grecians and Romans, and here we are today. So, look what happened to the land of the Chaldeans. They were given opportunity. This people was not until the Assyrian founded it. for them that dwell in the wilderness. They set up the towers thereof, they raised up the palaces thereof, and he brought it to ruin. So, the Lord had used the Assyrians to raise up nations, but the Assyrians also took down nations as well. Well, so we can see that Babylon, or the Chaldeans, were brought to ruin. But of course the Chaldeans came back and they ruled. So howl, ye ships of Tarshish. Howl. Why? Because of what was happening in Tyre. The ships are no longer needed. Why? Because Tarshish isn't around anymore. It was wiped out. For your strength is laid to waste. The strength that made your ships meaningful, that gave your ships purpose, it's no longer around. It's laid to waste. And it says there in verse 15, it shall come to pass in that day that Tyre shall be forgotten 70 years. Now I was reading in a commentary, and it seems like this 70 years could very well be reflecting the same 70 years of the Babylonian captivity. I'm not sure, I don't understand all the details, but that's what the commentary was saying. It was actually a Seventh-day Adventist commentary. And so you have to take that with a grain of salt sometimes too, right? So what happens is you learn, and it might be reflecting that 70 years, I'm not sure, but we can see as we continue on. It shall come to pass. This is a future testimony, right? A prophecy. It shall, future tense, come to pass that in that day that Tyre shall be forgotten. For how long? 70 years. So it could very well be, according to the days of one king. Now, in the commentary, they were suggesting that this king might be kingdom, according to the days of one kingdom. After the end of 70 years shall Tyre sing as a what? A harlot. Now, wait a minute. I thought Tyre was going to fall as an economic system, and I thought Babylon was going to fall as an economic system, right? And so Babylon is referred to as a harlot. In fact, if you go to Revelation chapter 17 and verse 5, you see that upon her forehead was written mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and the abominations of the earth, right? And so in her hand was the cup of abominations. Why? Because she was fornicating with the kings of the earth. It was the filthiness of her fornication. And so this mother of harlots was somebody who was drunk with the wine of Babylon and all those other things. She was a martyr, and she was committing all these evils because she had all the money. She had all the merchandise. She was taking care of the merchants. Well, Tyre is also going to sing as a harlot. So she must have daughters like a harlot, because remember, it talked about earlier, the daughters of Tarshish, not the daughter of Tyre. So it goes on that you are to take a harp and go about the city, you harlot that has been forgotten. So Tyre is a harlot. Tyre is actually called a harlot right here. Make sweet melody, sing many songs that thou mayest be remembered. Right? So Tyre is going to be destroyed, and all her economy and all of her economic system. And why? Because she's a harlot. She's going to be forgotten. She's going to be wiped out. But she's going to go around as this harlot, and she's going to sing so that she can be remembered. I don't fully understand all of what was happening there, but it sure relates to me to what was going on in the book of Revelation chapter 18 with the harlot that is committed fornications with the earth. Now, wait a minute. Fornication. Wait, whoa, what's going on here? What does this word mean? Okay. It shall come to pass to after the end of the 70 years, which was prophesied. Remember, we learned about it here, where it shall come to pass in that day that shall be forgotten. So at the end of that 70 years, that the Lord will visit Tyre, kind of like he visits Babylon. And she shall turn to her hire and shall commit what? Fornication with all the kingdoms of the world upon the face of the earth. Man, if you were to ask me and say, what does Tyre look like in the Old Testament? I would say 100% it looks like Babylon in the New Testament, right? So it seems as though Tyre in the Old Testament is kind of like the illustration of Babylon falling for the Old Testament, whereas in the New Testament we have Babylon falling for us. And so I just find that there are so many connections, so many parallels, so many, like dots fitting together there with Tyre and Babylon. So this is like the Old Testament economic collapse, if you will, during that time, of course, during the time of Isaiah as he was prophesying. But we should be also prophesying that Babylon will fall, which is the whole economic system of the world led and directed by Rome and the papacy in the United States of America coming together, and all of the, how do you read it? The I want to go back to that verse. It's chapter 18, verse 23. The sorceries, yes, I was trying to remember that word. The pharmakia that all the nations are deceived by. These are the things that will fall. These are the things that you need to be aware of and you need to open your mind to, that it's going to crash. The entire system is going to crash. And so we need to be more self-sustaining, if you will. And so that's what's happening is this woman, Tyre, she is committing fornication with the kings of the earth, just like Babylon in the New Testament. Her merchandise and her hire shall be what? This is actually the last verse right here. Her merchandise, so all the things that she has, and the money that she made shall be what? This is kind of strange. Holiness to the Lord. So something that is holy has been dedicated to the Lord. So all of what she has and all of what she made is going to be dedicated to the Lord. It shall not be treasured nor laid up. He's going to use it. For her merchandise shall be what? For them. For who? For them that dwell before the Lord, to eat sufficiently and for durable clothing. Whoa. So are you telling me, let me just read this again, okay? Let me just say that right here, there's going to be a time for after 70 years, the Lord's going to visit Tyre. Tyre is the one that's making all the money and has all the merchandise. And Tyre is going to be committing fornication with the kingdoms of the earth. And what happens is all of her merchandise and hire is dedicated for the Lord's work. What is the Lord going to use for it? Use it for? It shall be treasured up. Not be treasured up. For her merchandise shall be, here's that phrase, for them that dwell before the Lord, to eat sufficiently and have durable clothing. So are you telling me that what this is saying is that when all of Babylon is destroyed, all of the nations of the world and all the fornication that's going on and the deception with the pharmakia that's going on and all the merchandise and the merchants and the ships and the trades and all that stuff that's going on, when all of that collapses, are you telling me that God's people will be safe and taken care of? Well, that means that when those places are falling, like Tyre or Babylon, God's people won't be in those places that fall and are destroyed. They're going to be out of those locations and they're going to be taken care of. How? Your bread and your water will be sure, remember? Now, that doesn't mean it's going to be easy. Absolutely not. It wasn't easy for Elijah for the 3.5 years that he was in the wilderness, and it won't be easy for you. And that 3.5 years, by the way, is actually 1,260 days. It's a time and half a time. It literally, we understand it, of course, prophetically going on through the Dark Ages. But you can learn a lot from Elijah in the wilderness for 3.5 years, 1,260 days, 42 months. Jesus, by the way, he existed and did ministry for 3.5 years, 1,260 days, 42 months, a time and a half a time. It wasn't prophetic, it was actual, but he existed in that same amount of time, just like the abomination of desolation during the Dark Ages. And it will happen again, not necessarily specifically for the 3.5 years, 42 months, 1,260 days, but that whole system, the whole scenario will be set up. And that's what's going to crumble. That's what's going to collapse. This world is not going to be your savior. It's not going to be safe here in this world. We need to be able to come away from those places. And God has said that the merchandise and the hire will be for those that follow the Lord, that are actually with him. And I want to be one of those during that time. I want to be completely surrendered to the Father, to his Son, and co-work with the holy angels to be able to fulfill the mission that he has for me in this world. I want that. And I want that for you. So understand that this section of the Bible is not like extremely clear. I don't understand all the details of it, but I can sure see a real connection between the fall of Tyre and the fall of Babylon. And what it's doing for us is it's trying to wake us up to the fact that it's not going to be the same. You're not going to be able to go to Walmart the rest of your life. It's going to collapse. And I think we can see it's not very far in the future that these things are going to fail. So I want to be prepared. Now, I know that there's nothing in this world we can do of ourselves to prepare for ourselves, except that we co-work with the Lord. And so I want to surrender my life 100%, my mind 100%, all that I have 100%, my family as well, to the Lord. And I want him to direct and guide us, and I want him to prepare us. Studying the Bible and praying, having your heart right with God is going to be the most important thing for preparation for the end of time. I believe that 100%. If we don't have a converted heart, we will not go through. But if we are completely surrendered to the Father and his Son, co-working with the holy angels, we will be blessed. We will be led by God, and he will work miracles for us just as he did all the way through the Old Testament with his children that were faithful. So I want to surrender myself now, asking God to use me and to prepare my heart, my mind, to receive his words and be transformed. And I'm asking for the same commitment that from you, that you'll do the same thing. So let's bow our heads, asking God right now to take us and use us and glorify his name through us. Father in heaven, I want to thank you for giving us this opportunity. I do pray that you would bless and lead us, that we can understand how we can be transformed. I know that we can see others very easily, like they did that wrong, they said that wrong, but how do we be transformed? Lord, change our lives. Make us willing to be that living sacrifice, prepared for you to do whatever you want with it. We ask that you would help us to realize that this economy, this world, this Babylonian system that stretches from the east to the west and from the north to the south, it's going to fall. And I pray that you'd help us to be prepared for those things. Help us to realize that maybe we should move. Maybe we should go to a different location. Maybe we should make some serious decisions to find ourselves outside of the cities, outside of the places that we know are going to collapse, that are filled with sin and all these terrible riots and destruction and all the things that are going on even right now. We just pray that you would open our eyes and open our minds. Help us to follow that path that you have for us. May we be dedicated to follow your will and your will alone. Keep us from going to the left or to the right. Help us to hear that voice behind us saying, this is the way, walk ye in it. And we ask that you would guide us. Thank you for this, and bless us, we pray. In Jesus' holy name, amen.